All right. And welcome back, everyone, to Strange Planet Podcast. And for this week, we have Trump's tariffs now in effect as America, the season finale continues, or I should say the series finale continues. What impact this is going to have on the economy is basically what we're going to be talking about here today. Because basically, yeah, you're going to be seeing the spikes going up. Everything is about to rise. And it's really all thanks to Donald Trump. And on another side note, everybody was talking about that bullshit red wave. The only red wave you're actually going to see is if you pull out your phone and open up the stocks app. And yeah, take a look at that because this is about what, the third month now? Third month in, I think, give or take, a couple days or a week or so. And yeah, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. So I can't see how these tariffs are going to make that any better. So what do you guys have to say about this current situation and the destruction that these tariffs are going to bring our way?
Well, I mean, if you voted for lower prices at the grocery store, you're about to be severely disappointed. Donald Trump ran on being someone that was for the middle class, and he's going to lower prices, and yeah, that's not his priority.
Nope.
His priority is enriching himself and paying back his billionaire donors and people who helped him achieve the presidency so he could avoid prison.
Mm.
So essentially, we are stuck with this guy for another 3 years and
Some
what,
change.
eight
Yeah.
months. And so we're going to have to really figure out how to survive because the economy is only going to get worse. He seems hell bent on these tariffs. At first, his objective was it was a vague one, but he said he wanted to impose tariffs so that immigrants stop coming in. He wanted to get other countries to stop the immigrants from coming in. And now he's extended the tariffs to all around the world, even an island that has no people.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
And
Idiot.
so there's just it's a I there's only one sort of conclusion that you can draw, and it's that he wants to purposely crash the economy for
Yeah,
some reason,
you're right.
because there's no reason to
Do any of it.
cause such economic turmoil. It's just like there's just no rational explanation for it other than you want to crash the economy. He says that he wants to, bring American jobs or factories, back to America. Do you know how long it's going to take to open up factories?
Yeah.
They have to either reacquire the land and the facilities or build them, and then to hire and train workers. That's like a long process. Now, and who's to say that our goods are going to be more expensive anyway because American workers need more money to survive than the countries where they're being built now. And so even if we do bring the jobs back to American factory workers, the goods they produce are going to be significantly higher. So,
Hmm.
I mean, it's just not a win. Um, China is imposing tariffs in retaliation, and if you order anything from Amazon, chances are, those prices are going to go up for you.
Yep.
There's just no win in it for America.
Nope.
And, it's just, you have to wonder why he did it. And the only conclusion you can draw is that he wants to crash the economy for some
Right.
reason.
Right.
Maybe he knows people that like short stocks and he's in on that. I don't know. But yeah, that's pretty much the only
Conclusion you could draw to it.
right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I 100% hear you. Mark, what do you
I,
have to say about this
I
nonsense?
was thinking the same thing as Rugby. The only reason you'd want to crash the economy is to buy low. And so you crash the economy, all the important stocks that you need or want to have in your portfolio to control X, Y, or Z. Wait till it gets to the lowest. You get your $1 billion backers to back you up on whatever you want to buy. And next thing you know, they're rolling over, whatever sector of stocks that they decide. So it's anybody's guess. It definitely is a method to the madness, I believe. I mean, why would you want to start a trade war with people out of nowhere?
Especially when some of them are our allies. Like,
Yeah, I
what the
mean,
fuck? Like, there's no logic in any of this.
there is no. It's you would think there's no logic, but he's either trying to like make money for himself, which is obviously a Trump move, or he's really got this other plan where he's trying to like buy out the stock market or do something with the stock market where it's it crashes low and then he
Well,
comes back
he-
as its savior or whatever bullshit.
no. Here's what I think. So if you have a tough economy where, buying power of Americans is going down, where, you just don't have money flowing because prices are so high, that's going to put a lot of companies out of business.
Mhm.
And a lot of them, or the majority of them, are going to be small businesses. So to the extent that we have small businesses left in this country,
They're gonna die.
we're going to see them disappear one by
Yeah.
one, or even more rapidly. And in their place are going to be the Amazons, the Walmarts. Those
Costco.
are going to have an even more outsized control over our economy. And so that could be another objective, to create so much economic havoc that small businesses can't survive in this economy. And in their place, the larger ones, the larger companies that can withstand large economic losses for a sustained period of time, those companies are going to, take their place
Mhm.
in areas that are vacated by smaller businesses.
This is unreal.
So yeah, that could be another
Possibility there.
objective.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's one thing I'd like to add to all this, and it's a little, we're gonna take a little tangent here, but are any of you familiar with the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act in 1930?
I've heard of it, but I don't remember what it's about.
Well, long story short, the way I see it is I feel like this country also, we've already established that it has a very bad memory about things. And as we all know, history has a, good way of repeating itself regularly. And I feel like what's happening right now is 5 years early compared to 1930, when they also did this exact same thing with the tariffs. The only difference was then there was a war and then there was the Depression. And what happened once they, put these tariffs out? It made the depression worse. It worsened it and made it even drag out even longer until about 4 years later, when what do you call it? I believe he was, removed from office and or voted out from office. And then whoever went in next was, intelligent enough to get rid of the stupid tariffs. And then things started getting better. So I feel like this right here is proof that America still doesn't learn from its
Well,
mistakes.
well, the tariffs back then were even more concentrated and not as widespread.
True.
The tariffs now are, just anyone, you get a tariff, you get a
Yeah,
tariff.
right.
Yeah.
Just giving them out like in executive
And
orders.
they're a lot higher. And yeah, there's really no rationale or reason
Yeah.
for it. he says, oh, he wants to bring jobs back, but how can you bring jobs back in a shit economy?
Yeah, not only that, but if you're
Um,
going to raise all the tariffs on all these, on all of our allies, even too, they're not going to want to pay these tariffs. They're going to go elsewhere. And then how do you get those people back once we get this clown out of office? You can't. There's no guarantee they're ever going to come back. So, like, that really is going to be a punch to the gut to the American economy. We're chasing people away thanks to Trump.
right. No,
Yeah.
and another objective of this could be that so Trump is redoing the tax cuts for the rich,
Hmm.
which is going to cost trillions of dollars over the course of the next decade. And
Right.
so,
Right.
where do you think that money is going to come from?
The Department of Education,
Well,
Social
yeah,
Security.
he's slashing jobs, at agencies and getting rid of agencies altogether.
Yep.
But that's not enough to cover it.
Mm.
There's also the possibility that these tariffs could be raising money to pay for these tax cuts,
Ah,
because American consumers, they have to buy, some things. They have
Mm.
to spend every last dollar they have in order to afford to live. And so there is going to be economic activity, um, because you need basic goods to survive.
right. Right.
But you'll just be paying a higher price for them. And so, you know, it's just like that's where the money's going to come from. Because put it like this: when you import goods and the tariff gets put on them when they come in through the ports, right? The US government will collect that money, right? So then the company turns around and says, oh, well, we got to charge this much more, right? The US government still collected that money. So anyone wondering how are the tax cuts going to be paid for? They're going to be paid for because consumers are paying more for the same goods.
Yeah. Basically.
Um, so that probably is another objective to further bleed the middle and poor classes, of more of the wealth, if you want to call it that they possess. Um, it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
It's not going to last because people are going to get fed up
Right. I'll
with
tell you. Go on.
conditions in this country.
Oh yeah.
Now, conditions in America are a lot better than many countries, probably most countries, actually. But with that comes an expectation. And when you've seen the anger in Americans at, the price of eggs, or,
Yes.
Pretty much the
but,
price of
but,
everything.
you know, but it, compared to other countries, we're still living very good. And so what I think corporate America, or I shouldn't even say corporate America, but the billionaire class that supports Donald Trump thinks is that, well, we could be doing even better. So we have to lower the standard of living for Americans, so that we can make more. And I think that is the objective. Like, we have too high expectations for our standard of living, and so they want to lower it.
Yeah.
And that is going to, maybe people will get used to, living in a second world country. But if it causes a global collapse, we could, very well be a third world
I
country.
was just going to bring that up. How long till
By
that?
the time, you know, other countries get sick of these tariffs and this unpredictable and aggressive behavior that the United States is exhibiting as a result of Trump's actions, the world's going
Mhm.
to get fed up with it. They're not going to put up with it for very long. And although the United States has a lot of economic power, a lot of military power, uh, we're outsized by the rest of the world.
Right, right.
And so you might find instances in which, you know, China is not happy with us. Russia might be happy with us regardless because they have Trump in office. But
Yeah.
Europe is not going to be happy with us. Africa's not going to be happy with us. And so when you get those actors together, that they normally, wouldn't, combine forces to oppose the United States, but they might each have an individual self-interest too. And so their economies collectively are strong enough to outpower ours.
Right, right.
And so I think, if Trump thinks he can use American economic power to impose his will on the rest of the world, I think he's going to find the limits of that power pretty quickly.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
it's and the people that are going to suffer from it are ordinary citizens.
Basically, the American, yeah, the people. That's right. Now, the real question I have for you, for both of you actually, and everybody tuning in right now, is how long do you think, because this is just a pattern of reality here, how long do you think till another Republican recession? You can't spell recession without R, you know what I mean? So do you think that you were already there? Do you think that's in the near future? Do you think I
Well,
think it's inevitable.
a recession is 2 quarters, like the textbook definition is 2 quarters of negative GDP growth.
Well, this is
And
probably one
so,
quarter right now, right?
yeah, we're about to, I mean, if you like the fiscal year is measured differently, but we're almost a quarter of the, calendar year done. And yeah, economic growth has not been
No.
good. The stock market's down, crypto is down.
Been down.
Everyone thought Trump's gonna be great for crypto. No, he
Yeah, right.
hasn't.
He
No, he
robbed people
hasn't.
blind with his own coin.
Yeah, it was great for him, but the whole crypto market, the day he was elected or the day he took office, well, even when he was elected, the crypto market went up. It started climbing a little. They were excited for Trump. Yeah, he took office and there was a spike. Bitcoin hit its all-time high. And then the day after, boom. And it's been going down ever since.
Yep.
Um, and so like there's just no um positive economic uh outcomes that have uh materialized.
And with these
You know,
tariffs, they're not
they'll
gonna.
say, "Oh, yes, the jobs report that just came out. Oh, it was better than expected." Okay, well, that's now. That was, for it takes time for people to go through the process of interviewing and getting hired, and that's like sort of a lagging indicator of sorts. What happens like 2, 3, 4 months from now when the effects of these tariffs are in full swing, prices are high, people aren't buying as much.
Yep.
What happens then? Companies will not want to invest in growing their workforces because they see less, profit coming in. Because, mind you, these tariffs aren't necessarily profitable to the companies, because, like told you before, as soon as the goods come into our ports, the United States government takes, its tariff. They charge a fee. So the companies now are without that money that they, would have got for that product. And so they have to charge the consumer to make up for it.
Mm,
Well, they don't have to, but they
right,
will,
right, right.
because, you can't as a, CEO of a business, you can't be like, oh, well, we're going to take a little loss this quarter.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Your investors will be like, fuck that. We're going to invest elsewhere where people
Basically.
are going to, and that's capitalism.
Yeah.
Capitalism isn't inherently bad, but unregulated capitalism
Can be
and
dangerous.
capitalism that's not checked, and um, monopoly power is bad for this country and bad for economies, because it's bad for competition. Um,
Right.
the reason that capitalism works when it does is because there is competition in the market,
Right.
which works to lower prices and also to increase quality,
Exactly.
because you have a choice of products, and you can either buy the cheaper product or you can buy the better made product. And that sort of like balance is upset when you have industries where, you know, companies have outsized monopoly power and use it to push out competition. And so that's essentially what's going to happen with these tariffs. If you're a small business, you can't, you buy things from Amazon or wherever, in bulk to stock your small business. And you can't, if those prices go up, you have to pass that along to your consumer. You can't afford to take a loss because, that's your
Yeah, your
rent
small
money, or
business.
that's your, mortgage, like that. You need that to survive. Whereas a company, yeah, yeah, it sucks,
They'll
but
get over it. Right.
yeah, they have the capital to withstand, um,
Hmm.
losses. And if the whole market's losing, then um, they're not going to be as hurt. The expectations of the shareholders aren't going to be as much. Whereas in a small business, if you're not bringing in the money, you have to stop your business because you can't live on it. Um,
Right.
and so I think that's what we're going to see over the course of the next few months and years.
More than
Um,
likely.
the destruction of the remainder of small business in America.
You're going to see them slowly dying. And you know what's crazy? Now that these tariffs are in full effect, there's nothing we can do besides just watching it destroy. That's the sad part. And now
No,
the
and
only
it's
worry,
theft. It is theft.
yeah, yeah, for
It
real.
is theft
The
by our
theft, it
government.
is.
It is, because it's completely unnecessary. And all it is transferring wealth from the middle class and the working class to billionaires
Yeah, the
through their
wealthy.
tax cuts.
Right.
That's all it is.
So now, given the destruction of what these tariffs are bringing and the rise of costs rather, that's going to be around the corner here, I can't help but think that, all those other threats, like the dismantling of the Department of Education, stealing and taking a bunch of money from, Medicare, Medicaid, and even Social Security. I can't help but think those things are next. And the only thing I can say about that is if they actually do manage to do that, especially when it comes to the healthcare or Social Security, and you're a MAGA idiot, you're gonna wait one day for that check, and if you're an older person, for that check to come in the mail. And if he pursues this, it's not coming. I got news for you. and then you only have yourself to thank for that. So, what do you guys think about that situation? If that could be what's next on the docket here,
I'm almost certain that it is. I mean, they're already tearing apart the Department of Education, and from what it seems, our generation is paying into a system that will not pay out when we retire
Yeah,
because the money will just not be there.
and if they take from it, it
They have
definitely
their
won't be
if
there.
they have their way, they would have tore off from that coffer long ago. Now they're in a good position where they could try to actually dismantle it. I think I remember saying that they were going to take a certain amount of money from a presiding body, and that amount of money that they were looking for was the exact amount that Social Security was that they presided over. It's like if you took every other thing that body presided over, it would not even come close to the money they want them to cut. It was like the exact number that they had for Social Security was that number. So
That's
it's
kind of
just
scary because
it's
they're saying for the millennial generation, it's likely there won't be any left, even if that doesn't happen. Although I'm
yeah.
not 100% sure if that is really factual, but it could be likely. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. You know what I mean? But if they pinch into it and there isn't enough for the millennials, then every generation after the millennials, guess what? There ain't going to be shit there for you. And you only have yourself to thank if Trump actually does pursue
Yeah,
and
but they
taking it.
they probably won't even be paying into the system because at that point the system would have collapsed.
That's a good
And
point, too. Yeah. Because it won't be there,
Yeah,
even if
once people
possibly.
stop getting their checks or get less, yeah,
One more time?
it's not gonna be good. I said once people stop getting their checks or get less, people are gonna realize, what's happening.
Yep.
The problem is
Well,
it's too late then.
here's the thing though. If we were serious about fixing Social Security, number one, Republicans only talk about raising the retirement age. So I guess you have to work until you're like fucking 90.
Basically.
But no, but in all seriousness, that's all they talk about. What they don't talk about is the fact that Social Security only gets taxed for your first $176,000. They've raised it, but so that means that you
Corporations
know
ain't paying their share.
people no, well, it's a personal income tax, so it's not corporations. It's
Yeah, but
the
those who get
CEOs.
paid $1 million bonuses and all this other shit aren't getting taxed on that beyond 120,000.
176.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like people, every dollar after 176,000 is in tax for Social Security. Why?
Who knows?
If we have a Social Security system and the system requires more money, why not raise the cap on the
Right.
tax? It only affects people making over $176,000. Why aren't you continuing to pay in on the income you're earning based on the system that makes you rich while makes other people dependent on Social Security for their retirement? You're good for your retirement. You're making over 176,000 a year.
Right.
Due to our current system, why aren't you paying, on the rest of the money you're earning, just like everyone else? Is
You know
it,
why?
oh,
Because
they,
it's not
they say, oh, it's because, they won't need Social Security. Well, I mean, they need Social Security because if people are, retiring and they don't, or they can't retire because they don't have enough money, or they retire and, there's just, they can't live. They're going to be up in arms, and guess who they're coming after? They're coming after you.
basically.
It's not sustainable. What they don't realize is that there's a tipping point that people won't take this shit anymore.
Right.
We're getting there.
There's definitely a tipping point,
You're right.
and
We are getting there. I think it's going to come
I
sooner than later.
I, I think the point is a lot closer than I think a lot of the MAGA elite think. It's because people have expectations. Like I said earlier, people have expectations. They're higher in America than in most other countries. And if people aren't getting what they expect, they're going to be angry and they're going to come after you.
Basically. Yeah. And can't really blame them either at that point. You know, it's
Oh, no,
unbelievable.
I'm not advocating violence of any sort, but people will be angry
Right.
if
No, but it's
they're treated like this.
exactly. And they've been conned. And now I think isn't it sad it would take something like to that point? Because like we've known this before this clown was even elected, but now we had to wait till we get to this point for that to register into their dense brainwashed minds. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just sad. It also shows a very good failure of the media in the long run too.
Oh yeah, the media totally capitulated to Trump.
Yeah, like complete failure. Really is.
I'm surprised. You figured there'd be one
But
out there that
but
didn't.
it's easy to blame the media. No, the people failed.
But you're right.
The
Yeah, that's
citizens
also
of this
true.
country failed.
Yeah, because you should know the difference. That's why critical thinking is so important. And that's why, the president loves the poorly educated, hence probably the reason why he wants to get rid of the Department of Education. You know what I mean? So you keep him dumb and he probably figures, oh, I can do what I want then. You know what I mean? So, not everybody is, but I hate to say it, the majority of his fan base definitely is because this is why we're here now.
No, I don't think they're necessary. There are a lot of dumb Trump supporters, but there are a lot of intelligent Trump supporters
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It's not about intelligence per se. It's about his ability to con people. People
Okay.
fall under his spell.
Yep. And they believe his
Um,
lies.
and it's the same thing with Hitler.
Hmm.
Hitler wasn't necessarily the smartest guy, but he was loud, he was aggressive.
Charming, supposedly.
Right. And
Yeah.
and so people fell under his spell. Um, and they put up with his vitriol and angry rhetoric, and in fact, they went along with it. And even though at first business leaders laughed at him and didn't take him seriously, then they realized, hey, well, might as well make some money off of this or get myself into a position where I'm not losing money because of him. Get on his good side. And that's what's happening now with Trump. And when you make comparisons to Hitler, people are always like, oh, like, because they think of the Holocaust and he's such an evil person, blah blah blah. And yes, Hitler was. But I think that kind of perspective misses out on sort of the tactics that Hitler used
Right.
in order to advance himself and gain control over the German people.
Right, right. Well, you're not
Um,
wrong by any of that either. I definitely see plenty of similarities and parallels between Trump and Hitler. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's hidden. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of right there out in the open. It's whether you choose to believe it or not. You know what I mean? You
well,
want to
no,
be for it?
he's using similar tactics.
Yeah, there's
Listen,
no denying that.
there's a lot of misinformation, which is part of like the media's fault because they're feeding into that, and that makes the people like you said, Rook, not necessarily stupid, but just
Misled.
very, very, very ill informed.
Yeah.
People
Gullible.
making decisions, when in their head, like, oh yeah, if I vote for Trump, all the grocery prices will go down because he's going to get on top of this inflation, and then he's like, tariffs, all your shit's gonna go up,
Right?
and I'm gonna make all the money.
Yeah,
It's just, I mean, it's with Trump, it's all about making himself money and protecting his millionaire friends, so he can still make all these deals.
Millionaire
He's
friends. You mean
sacrificing the
billionaire
country.
friends.
Well, whatever, millionaire, billionaire, illionaire
Billionaire.
friends.
Oh,
Yeah, right. That's a step down
If
from
we're getting that bougie, then oh my god.
Yeah,
But
well,
like,
we pretty much are.
the point is, if you don't believe that Trump is only out for himself and those who make, more than 7 figures, 12 figures, whatever, then you're fooling yourself.
Yeah,
Trump's
100%.
not for the little man. Trump is not for the family man. Trump is not for
Working
the
class.
military man, the working class man. Trump's not for any man other than Trump.
Yeah, and
Not
his
even
actions right now are
not
proving
even
it.
his kids fall under that.
Right.
Yeah, he'll help him out and everything because of his kids, but I mean, come on, it's all about Trump.
Yeah, that's
So
that's the truth of it, and his actions prove it.
Oh, my greatest thing out of this whole fucking thing that makes me laugh is all those federal workers that got fired that voted for Trump.
Yep.
Well, I didn't think they were going to fire me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, dumbass. There you go.
Believe a con man, and that's what happens.
You get conned.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh man, I just wish it was over. I wish he was past this. Where's Click? Where's that remote where I can just fast forward past all this nonsense?
Well, you might not like what you're going to see if you actually did that.
Yeah, I'll probably fast forward 3 decades from now. Like, holy shit, I hate being this old.
And in conclusion, I guess there is one more thing I do want to bring up, and it's just this. It's going back to the tariffs thing, because obviously we were talking. He's putting tariffs on our allies, pissing them off, basically starting a trade war. You know what I mean? But has he put a tariff on Russia?
Fuck no.
Isn't that ironic? Like nobody can connect these dots. You realize that?
Are the dots on the dress?
Like,
I'm sorry, that was Clinton.
That weird? Yeah, like no one finds that weird. Like
I don't find that weird
USA,
at all.
right?
I don't find that.
No, he doesn't want to upset Putin.
Right?
Yeah, no, he loves Putin. Putin's his ally.
But nobody drew this parallel yet. How come like you don't hear that in the mainstream media? You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck? Like, tell you, man. Just none of it.
Yeah, I mean, he listed a whole bunch of countries. Why wasn't Russia on it?
And Russia was not on the docket, right? Isn't that ironic?
Isn't it ironic? Copyright.
And all right, everyone. That is all we got for this week on Strange Planet Podcast. New episodes will be every Friday on YouTube. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And may God help us all. Peace.